Service Animal Advocacy Update, May 2019. So this is a little update from PSDP and our coalition that we work through with others called USA, United Service Animal Users, Supporters, and Advocates. On May 17th of 2019, we met with DOT, and at that meeting, we exchanged a lot of information, but part of that was a speech that I prepared, and so I wanted to pass along to the community the information that we're giving to DOT and our ongoing relationship with them to improve the flight laws with the Department of Transportation in the U.S. So this is approximately what I said on that day, and fortunately it was well received afterwards. They came up to me individually to let me know. So here goes. In the interest of getting on the same page, I'll try to tell you our service animal community's understanding of where we are and how we got there. This is my accounting of the perspective of users, not service dog providers or accreditation organizations. Some airlines, like Alaska and Southwest, have pulled back from the current trend, but overall others have increased the requirements for all assistance animal users, but especially for users of psychiatric service animals and emotional support animals. And most continue to lump these two categories together, not understanding the substantial differences between psychiatric service animals and emotional support animals, because DOT's regulations encourage airlines to paint them with the same brush. Before this trend over the past 2 years of making things harder on people with disabilities, we conducted a survey at the end of 2016 at DOT's request and found that 3 out of 4 psychiatric service dog users either flew less or didn't fly at all because of the burden of the advance notice and documentation requirements at the time. This isn't surprising when you learn that the average increased cost to people with disabilities who can obtain the documentation is almost $157, 31 days to get in to see the letter writer, and 5 hours out of their life for the visit. And these results are in Chapter 2 of the Green Handbook, and that we had there to present to them, and you can see a link to it, psych.dog/USA, and you can find it there. The regulations already discriminate on the basis of disability, making it harder for service animal users with mental health-related disabilities than those with other disability types. The psychiatric service dog community has never understood how anyone could think this is consistent with the ACAA's basic mandate to end disability-based discrimination in air travel, since the segregation of service animal users created additional discrimination. And just a note on terminology, I'll say assistance animals when I mean both service animals and ESAs. After the regneg, airlines started writing their own rules that went beyond what's prescribed in DOT's regulations. Breed restrictions have popped up, new behavioral assessments have been created without understanding whether the requested assessor was the right person for the job or the setting was appropriate. Check-in options have been eliminated as folks are required to present themselves for prejudicial inspection by non-experts. And where there was no evidence of any issue with rabies or any other disease, many service animal users are now required to pay for a vet visit for each airline they may fly with. This is all in addition to the burdens that already stopped so many disabled people from flying. We wanted to get a better understanding of how these new hurdles were harming our community. So in May of 2018, we released our more comprehensive Flight Access Survey report, which had responses from 926 service animal users. And these results are in Chapter 3 of our handbook. We found that on a scale where 1 is not at all discouraged and 5 was totally discouraged, folks were discouraged from flying at an average rating of 3.5 with a single third-party documentation requirement. With 2 documentation requirements, this shoots up to 4.2 out of 5. Remember, a rating of 3.5 corresponds to the documentation requirements in 2016 that reduced or eliminated flying for 3 out of 4 service animal users who had to get the documentation. Requiring 2 pieces of third-party documentation means 88% are at least moderately discouraged, and 55% are totally discouraged from flying. And the quantitative results are summarized on page 85 in our handbook. We conducted a single question open-ended survey just before this meeting. It's in chapter 6 of the handbook. And people across our community remain frustrated, confused, disheartened, and ultimately turned off from flying. This is both from the previous situation since 2009, and even more so from the maze that service animal users are now forced to navigate if they want to fly and shop around for the best airline just like anyone else. It's so hard for them to know ahead of time that airline X is going to cost them $157 for a doctor's visit they can't get into for 31 days, or $118 on average for a vet visit, and hope the vet will fill out a form that practically only functions as an access barrier. We understood DOT's enforcement priority statement as a signal to airlines that airlines could get away with erecting whatever burdens they want. The airlines have apparently had the same understanding as us because that's what it looks like they've done. If anyone thinks I'm not saying this nicely, it's because there's no nice way to describe this state of affairs. People with disabilities are suffering under the regulations and enforcement that are supposed to help them. This is a crisis that has been rotten from its conception, and our first job as advocates is to make sure DOT can't look away from this injustice it's created. But we don't just chastise DOT. Our second job is to provide you with all the resources you need to do better, hence our Green Handbook. In the qualitative feedback across 3 years and 3 surveys, our community members provide individual examples of wrongs they've suffered. We could direct a person here or there to contact DOT with a complaint, but that would be us trying to hold up a balsa wood shield against a catapulted boulder. The real problem is the broken regulations that fail in their primary mission to minimize discrimination, and then DOT not stopping the airlines from creating actual black and white requirements that clearly end flying for more people with disabilities. Our resources have explained how these requirements don't only cause problems, but there is neither sufficient evidence that they're called for, nor that they meaningfully achieve their stated goals at all. We've been through the regneg and articulated compromised positions for DOT. DOT paid a lot for this, and they're Chapter 1 in our handbook. We've answered DOT about its enforcement priorities and every single one of its ANPRM concerns. So, how do we move past old ways of thinking that have created so many problems and put the ideas from DOT's regneg investment into practice instead? All right, that was it. Thanks for listening, folks. I hope you appreciate what we're trying to do for the community. I know it's difficult to come together when there can be a lot of divisiveness and different opinions, but where it's clear based on surveys and evidence from the community, from so many service animal users, that there are such big problems and that the Air Carrier Access Act is not achieving its mission at all of ending discrimination in air travel for service animal users, we think it's important not to act like this is a non-event and, please will you do a little bit of something DOT, but we let them know that it is in fact a crisis and they do need to pay attention, and we want them to feel the urgency. So we hope that you feel the urgency too. If you weren't aware of the survey results from the community, check out our resources. We consolidated them all into that big handbook we just published. So I hope that will help you in understanding, as it helped us in understanding what the real needs are and what the real concerns are. All right, thank you very much. Until next time. Produced and edited by Bradley W. Morris, MAC Phil. Copyright 2019 Psychiatric Service Dog Partners.